Good afternoon and good morning, everyone, depending on where you're from. We just had a bit of a pre-show, which I'll be deleting, but we were having a few discussions. I'll answer some of those questions as we start to go through. I wanted to talk to you about the A9 that I used on the weekend at a wedding on Saturday. Like I said to people before, I really wanted to base my reviews on using the gear rather than sort of basing it on what other people are saying. So I'm going to take you through the whole shoot that I used it for and talk about where it went really, really well and where it didn't go so well. But to be honest, there's not much where it didn't go well at all. But I'll take you through it, and then I'll talk to you about how I used it and how I found the controls worked, how the focus worked, the battery went, everything. So I'm going to take you through basically all of the shoot and how it went. So it will be a first-hand experience about how the camera actually went. We can ask some questions through here as well, and I will stop every so often and answer them or have a look at them, and we'll have a question time at the end as well. And clearly, if you're watching this later on, not part of the live view that we're having now, you can leave those questions down below, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I always answer the questions, so I'll get back to you as quickly as possible on those as well. But yeah, so I got the camera on Friday. So I was very lucky that I got it. I didn't think I was going to get it before the wedding this Saturday because it's winter time here now in Melbourne, so the wedding season basically is now stopping for around about 6 weeks for me. And it's a time where I can catch up on all my editing and doing albums and things like that are held off while I'm so busy doing weddings. So I was lucky to get this camera in time to do a wedding on the weekend, which was terrific that I actually got it. So I did use it. Now, I didn't use all of the features with flash in the fact that I didn't try and use it with my Profoto gear because, to be honest, as this was a paid wedding, I didn't want to use something where I wasn't totally comfortable how it would work. So I did use flash, but I used the on-camera Sony flash, the HLV60. But for off-camera flash type work, I will be doing some shoots, modelling shoots over the next coming weeks that I can show you how it worked in that respect. But I didn't want to use it with the Profoto because, like I said, I wasn't 100% comfortable in how it would perform. It probably will go okay, but I didn't want to chance it being it was a paid wedding. So when I did have to go to those type of shots, I used my A7R II. The thing that I'm intending to do from this, and even looking at the images, I'm still going to be using my A7R II and the A9 together, and there's reasons why, and I'll sort of talk about that as we go through the actual shoot, and I'm going to show you the images that I captured as we go through them to sort of talk about how it went. Now, the good part is the wedding venue that I actually used was an incredibly challenging one. I have had issues before with the Sony gear in focusing in some of the areas that this wedding venue has. It's incredibly dark and challenging with artificial lighting. So it was a perfect scenario to try out the new A9 and also to test out the new electronic shutter and to see how that performed with things like banding and things as well. And I've taken shots of the wedding venue that you can sort of see how it looks, so you'll get an idea. The photos really don't do justice either in how dark it actually is. So they're actually a little bit brighter than what the venue actually is. So, but I will sort of show you that through here. So I'll just have a look at a couple of quick questions that we're seeing. We were having a discussion in the pre-show about the Batis, saying how much I love it. Mitch is just saying that he loves the colour of the Batis lenses. And have I noticed a difference between the Batis and the G Master 85? And yes, I have. The G Master is definitely a nicer lens, but I'm really happy with what the Batis gives for me. John said, isn't the 35 and 55 too close? I have the 28 and 50 thinking it's worth, is it worth getting the 35? No, I don't think they are too close, Jan. I use the 35 and 55 all the time, and the 55 particularly, and I'll talk about that in the discussion as we go a little bit on later on. James said, how do you like the colour of the raw file? Well, you can have a look in a second, James. You can have a look on the screen. It's really, really good. And Infamous said the Profoto cannot use HSS. I tried it, and that might be the issue, Infamous. Yeah, I didn't want to risk it. It will have to be an update on the Profoto Air remote, I think, to use HSS. It will come. They work with the A7 and the A7R II, so I suppose it's just going to have to wait for an update like Canon has had to and Nikon have had to with newer cameras for the Profoto gear. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take you through the whole shoot. I did around about 600, 700 images with the A9. I'm not showing you all of them because it'd be pretty boring. So I've just done a sort of selection of how it went on the day. And I'm actually, to be honest, really, really happy with how it performed. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch over to my desktop and we can have a look at some of the images that I actually took. Now, guys, these have only just been brought into Lightroom and I've just had some modifications in shadows. Now, I do always underexpose a little bit and bring it back. I just always expose for the highlights. So just to sort of show you when I'm doing this, I'm actually exposing for this area here. It's really important to me because the light, is streaming in through the window through these sections. I want to try and keep the highlight detail actually coming through. So for me, it's important to expose for that. Now, the new A9 has the highlight metering as part of that, but I didn't use that. Like I said, I only got this on Friday, and there's a lot more testing that I'm going to have to do to see how it performs. The beauty is with the Sony system, you can see what you're going to get through the viewfinder. So, I'm just exposing for that highlight anyway, and allowing the shadows to go off a little bit and then pull them back up in the file itself. So that's what I was interested to see, how the dynamic range went with this camera, and I have been extremely happy actually with how it performs, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But it's not as good as the A7R II, but it's good enough. It's very, very close in a lot of respects. It's about a stop difference, but for the work I'm doing, the file size difference, again, it's so nice to be able to use this camera at a 24 megapixel size rather than the 42 for all of the work that I'm doing. And like I said, I'll talk about using the A7R II a little bit later. So I used it extensively on the day. You can see there that I've grabbed that. The detail is beautiful in this sensor. Like it actually focuses rock steady, and it's very, very fast to focus. And I've shot some images that I'll show you a little bit later on where it's got back focusing, and it focused really, really well in the back focusing areas where it would have struggled a little bit before. So I started off obviously with the groom, and then I went through some detail shots. Now you can see what I'm using up in the top corner there. This is 1/60th of a second at f2.2 ISO 400. This is with a 35mm 1.4 lens. So again, these haven't all been corrected yet. They've just had very, very slight editing as they've been brought in. So you're seeing them raw. So please don't base it as the final images that I'm going to hand out. They're not. These are basically almost, like straight out of camera. So you're going to get an idea of looking through. This is just giving you an idea of the type of detail shots that I'm getting. Now, these were all under artificial lighting, and that's why I was interested to see if there was any banding that's coming through these, and I haven't got any banding that I can see in any of the images, and the results are really quite clean that I'm happy. It is slightly noisier though at the lower ISOs in the A7R II, so I can definitely see that it is a fraction noisier, but the images are still beautiful. So it's not that I'm worried about it or that my clients are going to be worried about it, but I can see that there is a slight fraction more noise than what the A7R II had. But again, the images are beautiful, and I'm not pixel peeping. I just look at it to what I can sell for my clients and what I'm happy with. So that gives you an idea about the type of images that I'm shooting. Again, it's giving gorgeous detail up close. If you look at it through the mesh that's down the bottom, it's really, really sharp, and I'm really, really happy with how this went. And like I said, I wasn't silly enough to just go in blindly with this because I didn't really have a chance to test this beforehand. I had my A7R II right next to me and the A6 500 right next to me. You're only seeing the A9 shots here. I did make sure that I also grabbed images with the other cameras just in case, because sometimes if you're looking on the back of the screen, it can look amazing, and then you get it home and you think, oh, that wasn't as nice as what I thought. So being a paid wedding shoot, I'm keeping it real for you guys, so I wanted to show you exactly how this camera performed on the day. Again, some more detail shots coming in with the showing the flowers. So these are all type of detail shots that I like to show the wedding party. As you're looking through, again, it's really beautiful and sharp, and I'm really happy with how the sensor's performing, and also the lens. Like I said, I love that 35mm 1.4 lens. Again, some more shots of the flowers. You can sort of see the nice fall off that I'm getting from here. And again, the colors are beautiful. This is how the images looked. So the color is very, very accurate without me adding any vibrance or saturation. These are raw. So these will be lifted, like heaps once I actually start to correct these for the correct color balance, because you are looking at the raw images in the camera. Again, some more images here. This was using automatic white balance, so I didn't balance this using custom white balance. It was all balanced using the automatic white balance of the camera. And again, I'm really, really happy with how the balance came up. It's very, very close to what the original images look, or the original items look like. Like I said, I think I'm just going to have to add a little bit of color and saturation a little bit later on, but it doesn't need much. Again, I'm really happy with how it's held the highlight detail in these images. It seems to hold that really, really well. And you'll see that once we start to go through the bride images as we go on as well. Again, you're sort of seeing all the detail shots that I like to supply. And I did mention last time that it's really important to be doing these type of shots, guys, if you're doing wedding, because I'll be sharing this with the florist. They'll immediately share all my work to their clients as well. So I'm getting free advertising with this as well. Now, I believe that the A9 has an anti-aliasing filter, and that's why I wanted to test this with things like this, because this is where you can get aliasing, this nice mesh or the bride's veil that's hanging over the flowers here, and there's nothing that I can see that's causing any aliasing at all. So it seems to be really, really well controlled if it does have that aliasing filter, and I'm really, really happy with how sharp and like I said, the results actually are. So let's start looking at some of the bride images. Again, please don't count these as finished images. These are, like I said, basically straight out of camera. They've just been lifted in shadows a little bit. But you can see that it's held the detail, and also the shadow detail is really, really nice that's being held through here. If you look, it's really important to try to hold on to this detail in the wedding dress. Remember, they've paid a lot of money for this detail. So I try, if I can, to never blow that out, and that's why I always like to underexpose a little bit and make sure I can bring the shadows back. And you can see it's even held the detail up in the hair, in the actual item in the hair through here. It's beautiful, and the detail, if you're looking at it, is really quite nice. And if you look at her hair, the detail that you've brought back in her hair is actually really, really nice. So the dynamic range, even though they're saying it's only around about 12, nearly 13 stops, whereas the A7R2 is 14. I'm quite happy with how the dynamic range has performed in this camera. I will show you some examples later on where I've really underexposed deliberately right under to pull up, and that's where you'd see the difference between using an A7R or an A7 or an A9. But I'll show that as we actually start to go through. Mitch has said, I agree about the colour straight out of camera. From what I've seen online from other people's images, the colour has that Canon look, and I really like it. Do you notice a big difference in colour against the A7R2? Yeah, I think the colour is a little bit nicer. I haven't done too much side-by-side comparison yet, but I have to admit that the images tend to look really, really beautiful. It's the focus too is the massive difference between these two cameras, and we'll talk about that when I go through the camera a little bit later on, Mitch. Again, if we look down here, I'm just going to keep scrolling through so you can see some of these images. Again, it's grabbed this. It's quite heavily backlit because right behind, she had a actual bride's man in her wedding party, which is really nice. So they had two girls and a bridesmaid, we called him. It was really quite moving, and he was a lovely bloke. So right behind him, there was a window right in that corner. So it was interesting to see how it did focus, and it has nailed the focus on her eye, which is where I aim for. And again, the dynamic range is really, really good considering it was so heavily backlit. Again, if you're looking here, you can see that she has been very, very heavily backlit from this window. Now, this is sometimes where the A7R2 had a lot of trouble, really had trouble focusing. If I tried to focus in this scenario, and I'll keep showing you some more later, but if I had to focus the A7R2 in this scenario, it would have been hunting back and forth. Whereas this just nailed it. I basically aim for here, and he got it straight away without any focus hunting or whatever. So it's a game changer in that respect of working with backlit type of scenario. It worked really, really well, and I'm so happy with that because I did notice the Nikon D4S that I used to have was better with backlit scenarios, but I don't think that's the case anymore. I think the Sony is equal to that now with backlit work, so that's a great feature that now I'm quite comfortable working in that respect. A couple more that we can look at. Again, heavily backlit. I nailed focus straight on her eye there, which is where I pointed it at, and it was extremely quick. Again here, I used eye focus because I wanted to check the eye focus works through glasses, and it did. It nailed her eye straight away, which was fantastic. I know with the A7R II it had trouble with even focusing on me with glasses, so it did nail it through here, and the eye focus tended to work really well, which was terrific. Again, I love to do detail shots. I immediately just focused in straight away on the area there, and it grabbed focus immediately, no hunting back and forth. It was extremely quick, focusing on that area as well. I'll just scroll back to the next one. Again, it's more, you can see it's backlit again by that window that's coming through, and it has nailed the focus on his hands. There was no hunting back and forth, which again, has been absolutely terrific. Now this one really was heavily backlit. You can see that she's really lit up from this area that's around here because she's sitting down. That window is right behind her, and I tried to nail focus on her eye, and it didn't hesitate at all. And like I said, this is an area where the A7R or my A7 II would have struggled. And that to me is a real game changer if you're dealing with backlit scenarios. And this is why I really wanted to do this reel for you guys, because I didn't want to have something where I'm just talking about how it could potentially go. I wanted to show you this live to show you actually how it performed, so you can see in real life how it's performs. And then all the Sony haters basically are going to have to argue the fact, well, this camera didn't work. Well, it did. So I just wanted to sort of show you how it's performed in real life. I'm going to keep going on. Again, eye focus through the eyes. It's nailed her eyes there through glasses, which I said it worked fantastic. And it did work really, really well. And like I said, this was an issue where beforehand I would have struggled with the A7R II getting focus on the eye. It would have just gone to face detect. But it did get her eye focus through the glasses, and you can see it's nailed it. So, it's worked really, really well. Now, this is one I wanted to actually show you how I expose this. I deliberately did this to try and get this area, because there's a window that's basically right through here. So I wanted to make sure that I got this not overexposed in this area here. Now, I'm not saying this is the ideal shot, but I wanted to do this to see how the dynamic range can recover from this image, because this is one that's quite extreme. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pull up the shadow detail, and you can just see what I can gain back through just recovering in the shadow area. And you can sort of see the type of results that you can get there without having to look at the issue of losing that highlight detail. So again, you can see that the dynamic range is still workable, which is great. It's not as good as the A7R II, but it's still workable. If you did try and push it too far, you will start to get noise, whereas the A7R II is insane how much you can pull that up. And I will also show some more examples of this later on, but I'm quite comfortable with now underexposing with this camera and bringing it back. Again, this was quite high in the exposure that was coming from the right-hand side of the image over there, and it's kept that detail very, very well. And I've kept the detail in the dress, and also even his shirt, you can see it still held the detail in his shirt. So the sensor's working beautifully, and so is the lens. Again, you can sort of see here that she's shot up nicely. I've got nice detail in the hair, and the highlights are still there. It's grabbed eye focus on her eyes, which has been fantastic. And again, like I said, these aren't edited as finals yet, guys. These are basically all straight out of camera. So again, it'll be added colour and everything later on. But the colour just straight out of camera for RAW is actually quite beautiful. So I'm quite happy with the skin tones and everything, how they're looking. I mean, you know, I can start to drag these down a little bit if I wanted to, and, you know, add a little bit of vibrance in it if I wanted to give it a little bit of a kick and things like that. But I'm trying to keep it real for you in that you'll sort of see the results that I'm getting more or less as straight out of camera. Again, I got it to close her eyes and check focus with the eye focus through there, and it still grabbed eye focus, which is really, really good. You can see it's still keeping detail in the in the flowers down lower. Again, this was a great test because she's backlit from a window right behind her head. And again, at nail focus being backlit. Again, I can't stress this enough, how hard this used to be for my A7R to get focus if it was heavily backlit, and this has nailed it. So that it's a game changer in that respect. Like, I'm so happy with how it's performed for me in that regard, and it's kept that shadow detail there, and the highlight detail is still there as well. So I'm so happy with how that's performed, guys. I can't overrate that. It's beautiful. Again, this is another one a bit softer where the I've put the veil over her head. And that's the thing too. It's good to see if it has got an anti-aliasing filter. Well, it's not getting moire, so that's an interesting fact as well, that you can see there's no moire showing on her face, which is really, really good too. And again, it's grabbed eye focus through the veil, which, you know, the eye focus is just insane on this camera, and I will talk all about those sort of features a little bit later on. Again, I've shot this looking where she's looking into a mirror. It's still kept the detail in the dress, and another one where she's lying on the bed. Again, it's got details in the shadow and details in the highlights. The main thing with me is I never ever want to try and blow out those highlights because it's so important to keep that, and this camera is enabling me to do that. So I'm really, really happy with how that's performing, and it is giving me a really beautiful look, and it's a look that I'm really going to be able to manipulate later on. This was one that I shot with the groom outside. This was with the Batis 85. I shot this at 1.8 at 1/4000th of a second. This has all been shot with the electronic shutter too, guys. So there's, you know, I wanted to try that to see how it all worked. Again, it's beautiful. The rendering's lovely. It nailed focus straight away where I put it. It was very, very quick in getting that exposure. So it's working really, really well outdoors as well. The day was quite overcast initially, so I couldn't push up the shutter speed too much. I got it up to a 4,000th of a second there. I think I'll get it up a fraction higher later on, but it was a pretty overcast day, so I couldn't really push it up. I'd like to have tried, you know, 1/32,000th, but it just didn't work on the day. This was another one, which was a first look. They had a first look, this couple. This was 1,6400, I mean, at 1.8. So I shot this at 1.8, focusing on her. Again, I've exposed for the dress. You can see that it's beautifully in focus, and it's also the detail looks gorgeous in her dress, and the veil that it's grabbed as well. The color even of her skin is really, really nice here, and it's shot at ISO 200, and this is also with the 85mm at 1.8. So I'm really, really happy with how the camera and the lens is performing together. It's really, really quite beautiful. The out of focus rendering of the groom there is really, really nice as well. After that, the sun did come out for a very short period of time, and I wanted to take a photo here, which is of them walking just near a lake. So this is shot at 1/8000th of a second at f4. I'm shooting with the 85mm Batis here, and at ISO 200. And you can see that, obviously, again, I've shot for her wedding dress, not to lose the highlights. It's just beautiful. I'm just so happy with the detail that's still there in the shadows, and also her dress. Like I said, I hate blowing out that, so it's worked really, really well. And I'm so happy with how this performed. You know, you can still see the detail in the clouds, and it's lovely. Like, I'm so happy with that. This is one where I wanted to underexpose completely for you guys to show you how it's actually worked. I shot this straight after. I used the A7R after this and put the Profoto B1 on it to expose them for their face, and the photo looks gorgeous. But I just wanted to do this first to show you sort of how you can pull this out. So I'm going to sort of, now I've exposed, obviously, for this, if I wasn't using flash in this scenario, now I'm not saying this is the way you would shoot this, but I wanted to show this an example to you guys, that I wanted to expose this for her highlight of her dress so that she didn't lose detail in her wedding dress. And then I'm going to try and recover back in the blacks to give a workable image. Again, like I said, to me, it's important to not lose detail in the wedding dress. Now, I couldn't get her into total shade. It was just the way that the wall was in this background. So he is in the shade, but she partly came out into the sun. So when I'm trying to look at this, I thought this is a great example of what I can bring back. So if we start to I'll bring up the shadows first, actually, so you can sort of see what we can do. And then I'm going to bring back some of the areas and then drop the whites back down. Now, it gives a workable image that I could then take that into Photoshop and manipulate this more to gain more out of it. So there is detail in the shadow, and that's been pulled up, a hell of a lot. If I was going to do this, clearly I'd be using flash to fill them in, but the A7R2 would do a better job in this case. I would be able to pull even more out of the shadows, but I'm quite comfortable with how much I can pull out of this, and the images are still quite clean. So it has worked really, really well for what I did. I'm surprised it's worked actually better than what I thought it would be. This was another one that I thought I will do to show this example. Kerry is standing over, and you'll see her in a minute. My assistant's standing over here with the Profoto B1. I didn't use it for this shot because I was using the A9, and then I quickly switched over to the A7R2 to fill her with flash because I wanted to basically get the ambient roughly right. So again, I thought, well, this is a perfect example too of how I can pull this out to see what I can gain as to work with later on, and it's actually pretty good. So again, I'm quite happy with what I can pull out. And again, then, if I wanted to, I could go into Photoshop and or even do it in Lightroom and selectively start to brighten just the bright up. And, it would be a workable file. So again, the recovery can save you if you do have a problem with exposure, or if you were deliberately trying not to blow out a highlight. So, it's worked again in that scenario. This was just a shot that I wanted to try and grab of the bride and groom, and you can still see that there's details behind them, and it's worked really, really well. Again, this was a whole wedding party, and again, these have to be manipulated later. I'll be brightening up this whole wedding party a fraction more, and I used the A9 with a flash on it. You'll see this in a minute, actually a bit further on. I used the A9 with a flash in some of these images. I put a flash on the camera to just light the bride up here. It's terrific. I'm actually very, very happy with how the camera worked. And the dynamic range, honestly, I know Deeper Review were talking about it being an issue. I don't think it is. I'm really quite comfortable with how it's working. Casper just said, which has the better ISO IQ, A7R2 or the A9? The ISO, I think it's about equal, Casper. I think you could easily push it up to around, I just did a few tests, and I was quite comfortable with it up at 6,500. I haven't pushed it more yet. I'm going to have to test that later on, but they're both very, very good. But the A9 is very good in high ISO. It's the focusing, though, in dark conditions. It kills the A7R2. Excuse me. This is another one where we're just using the bride and groom, and again, it's kept all the detail in the wedding dress. So I'm really, really happy with the sensor and the way it's performing with this. And it's, like I said, I've even got detail in her hair, and the color is just beautiful, basically straight JPEG, straight RAW, without me having to do much at all. I'm really, really quite happy with how it's performing. I'm just going to scroll through a few of these just so that you can see I always like to have the bridal party having a little bit of fun, things like that. Now, what we'll do now, we'll move into the reception. Now, I want to show you how dark that this reception was. I'm going to bring up an image if I can find it. I think I've got the venue. Oh, it's here. So this was the wedding venue, and this actually was during daylight. Now later on, once the outside light stopped coming through, it was even darker, obviously, because there was no ambient light coming in through the windows. So this is an incredibly dark venue. Now that's the venue for where the reception is, and then down in the wedding venue, downstairs, let me see if I can find one of that, because I think I took a couple down there as well. I think I've got to change it actually. Yeah, I don't think it's there. I'll find one when we go over, and so I can show you how dark the wedding venue is. So this was really, really quite dark. And basically I thought, well, I'll try this. Now you can sort of see that there's all artificial lighting everywhere that's coming through here. And it worked actually really, really well. So I thought this would be a good test too, to see how it handled this ambient light coming in through the side and also all this incandescent light above it. So, you know, I started to just basically shoot some shots. Now, again, like I said, these are all straight raw shots that you're looking at here. So it's beautiful. I mean, I'm really, really happy with how it's actually performed. Again, these are all detail shots. There's no banding that I can see in any of the shots. And you can see here that I'm shooting quite close. This was with the Zeiss Batis, and the lights behind, you know, you can sort of see that they're all out of focus, so that you can see the bokeh. And again, it's nailed the focus, and this was really harsh conditions to get focus through here. Again, I'm shooting the cake here nice and close. And like I said, these will be adjusted later on to make them a little bit brighter and a bit more contrasty, but you're looking at them straight as they were straight out of camera. But it was a good test to see how it went, and that's why I was so happy that I got this wedding venue, because it is very challenging, and the camera was stellar in how it performed. And you know, I'll talk about that with cons and everything a little bit later on. Again, you can sort of see here that it had some candles in these lights, and you can see it's kept shadow detail. And the highlights are really quite good as well. Well, they're beautiful actually, and again, it's great. The focusing was amazing for using it in quite challenging conditions. I'm shooting these at 1.8 with the Batis. The Batis sometimes, because it's such a longer lens, did tend to hunt sometimes when I was shooting. So I changed to the 55, and the 55 1.8 was unbelievable. How fast that could focus, even in the darker conditions later on. I couldn't believe how fast the 55 1.5 went. Again, some more images up close with the Batis. And this is one just where I've grabbed that number 2 there. I just wanted to try this challenging type focus scenario, and it really had no problems locking on. I changed here to the 55. I love the 55. It's so sharp, this lens. And oh my God, the focusing with this in really dim conditions was just beautiful. It just nailed it every single time. And I couldn't believe how well it functioned without hunting at all. It just bang, and it was straight on. And even the continuous focus, which we'll look at a little bit later on. You know, you can sort of see these are all images that I just grabbed, that I just wanted to show you how it's actually all performing. You know, and this one here is quite backlit by that window, and it nailed focus where I wanted to get it, which was on the table. Now, this is an area downstairs that was also incredibly challenging. Just let me see if I can find the wedding venue, because I'd like to show you how dark the actual venue is. I've just got to find where it is, because I want to show you this room. This was with a different camera. Oh no, this is the A9. But this wedding venue down below, where were we? I've taken some just of the room somewhere, because I wanted to show you how dark it actually is in that room. Let me bring it up. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find them, because it was incredibly challenging. Now I've shot a number of. This is the other shot of the venue downstairs, upstairs where the reception was. I don't know if I can find it. I'll have to just show you the images itself. Let me go back to rated, because I'm going to show you where the wedding venue actually came in. Now, they walk into this dark room, which is the cellar downstairs, which is really, really, like I said, very, very challenging. The other cameras that I've used down here have always struggled using continuous focus, and I haven't been able to use continuous. I've had to use basically on the single focus so that it doesn't hunt. And that's with the A7R II that I usually use down here, and the A7 IIs. So I've always had issues with them with continuous focus, whereas the A9 nailed it, and it didn't have any issue at all focusing in these conditions. And I was using the 55. Like I said, I can't stress how fast the 55 focused. The baddest was really, really good. The Sony 35 1.4 was really, really good, but the 55 was unbelievable how fast it was focusing in these conditions. So again, if we start to go through, I've just grabbed, now again, these haven't been edited, guys. They're just as they've been brought in, so I'm not hiding anything here. It nailed focus every time she moved, and it didn't miss at all. It was grabbing focus all that time. Even though it was so hard to get, it nailed her face every single time. Coming through walking, and as soon as I swung around, it grabbed focus on her as well. Whereas before, the A7R II would have really struggled here. It wouldn't have known what to focus on, and it's nailed it. And I can't be happier with how the focus is. This is a game changer for me for this low light type work. You can see how dark this is, and this is all lit with all of this incandescent lighting that's everywhere. There's even some mix of fluorescent in areas, and the banding is terrific. Now, I'm shooting at 100th of a second. I was conscious of that. I didn't want to go outside of that in case if there was banding, but it's not showing any, and I'm really, really happy with how that has performed. You can see as they're moving, it's just nailing focus every single time. It's just grabbing it. Now, my second shooter, you can see she's up the top there. She's grabbing a different angle to me, and I also had another camera on me where I'd start to shoot with a wider angle lens. You're only seeing the 55 here. I had the A7R II shooting at the same time. Again, just walking, and it's grabbed focus walking through here. So I'm so happy with how this has actually performed. It's nailed it each time that I've gone down. And like I said, this is very, very challenging. It's actually quite backlit too, which is interesting, because when I used to shoot here before, it often would try and grab focus on this area, but it's missed that completely, and it has grabbed on the area that I wanted to focus on, which was those two, the bride and groom, cuddling through here. And if we keep going, I wanted to talk about this because they had someone come up and do a discussion through here, and I shot this with a different lens, but I thought I'd quickly try and turn the camera on and get a shot off before he's hopped down these stairs. So basically, between him being at the top of the stairs and taking 2 steps down, I'd turn the camera on, nail focus, and got a shot. It's that quick. Now, compared to my A7R II or the A7 IIs, it takes a while for the camera to actually turn on and nail focus. Well, this nailed focus that quick. It was on in a second, and bang, I had the shot. Now, we can't use flash down here. That's why I haven't used flash in the scenarios that I'm shooting this. So I had to use all the light as it's shown. Also, it probably would spoil the mood of the shots either, but there's nothing I can do about the lighting as it is. That's just the way that we have to shoot in this venue. Again, very, very challenging conditions, and these will be edited, like I said. I'll be bringing her up and things like that, but it's worked incredibly well under very trying conditions. And here I'm trying to get into the ring, shot down here, and it's nailed that focus on the ring that I'm trying to grab there. And again, these will be worked on to get some results later on to be much prettier once I've given them the final results. I just didn't want to show you guys edited images, because what does that show? It doesn't show anything. Again, she's just putting the ring on, and it's really, really good how it's nailed focus on that spot. I'll just wait till it builds up focus. It's really, really good. Again, kiss, I nailed off a few shots here for the kiss, and it worked really, really well. Selective focus here worked fantastic too. I did try and focus on the certificate there. So what I've done here, I've nail focus on this spot right here, and it's grabbed that focus very, very quick. I wanted deliberately to focus on that, and then she'd be sort of all out of focus in the background down here, and it did nail that focus exactly where I wanted to get it to in these very trying conditions with a fluorescent light above. And there's no flickering at all, so it's worked really, really well. Again, there's no banding that I can see in any of these images. Again, quite trying conditions, and it's kept really focused really, really well. And the detail and the shadow and the highlight there gives me a lot that I can work on to bring these images up as well. And again, I've nailed the focus here on his hands. I just want to check too, a couple of questions, because 3 Tree Photography said, my only gripe with the A9 is the price. It's not a 4,500 value to me, it's 3,000. I'd go buy it today. I'd rather have more glass in the second A7R2, and that's a decision you have to make yourself. It is a lot of money, but I've sort of changed my mind after using this camera now. I think it's worth every cent that I paid for it, and it was nearly $7,000 here in Australia. What I could do in this wedding yesterday has completely changed my mind with how it focuses and works, but I'll discuss that a little bit later. Mitch said he's sorry he has to go. He's got to deliver a cake for his girlfriend. I'll come back and watch this later. No worries, Mitch. This was one of the ring shots that I wanted to grab, just of them shooting holding their hands together over the actual certificate that I like to grab. And this was one where I wanted to use the flash outdoors. So I stuck on the HLV 660, the Sony flash. I wanted to try and make sure it worked. And again, I haven't tried to make it too flashy. I've just done it so it adds fill. Again here, this is heavily backlit. This is particularly an area where this would be very, very hard to shoot with my A7R3 because it would have trouble focusing, and it nailed eye focusing on this. And again, you may not want to do this, and this isn't all the images. I'm only showing you what I captured with the A9. I'm not showing you what I grabbed with the A7R2 or my A6500 or the A7IIs even that I was using off-camera flash. I just wanted to show you here the A9s. But that's heavily backlit, and that nail focus here, I didn't have any hunting or anything. It just went bang and it grabbed it. And again, that was incredibly hard to do before. And here's one where I've actually shot with the flash on camera as well. Again, we've gone back inside. I just wanted to show how it can sort of grab some details in a incredibly sort of dark sort of environment. Again, it's nail focus. Pick focus easily here. This was downstairs, which was, like I said, incredibly dark area that it's grabbed downstairs. This was one area where it was just lit up by the light that was above her, and then I've got my assistant to stand behind her with an ice light that gives her a bit of separation in the background. And there's a ice light that is just off camera over here. And there's an ice light that's behind her to give her that separation as well. So there's no flash used here. It's just basically done that way. But again, this was with the 35mm 1.4. I'm really, really happy with how it worked and the detail that it's kept in a really challenging environment. We'll just take this off so you can check the next one. This was shot with the bride and groom in this dark, this is still in the cellar downstairs. Like I said, it's very, very challenging conditions. Again, you can still see that there's details in the background and it's lit them up. I've just got one ice light lighting them up from the front. And again, this will be work to lighten her up and do a lot of work later on. Like I said, I just didn't want to have work done on these. I wanted to show you how the images actually looked. Again, this is just the bride and groom, and again, this will be worked on later on to brighten them up. But again, it's given me an image that I can work around and that I'm very, very happy with, very, very similar to my A7R2. This was in another area downstairs that's got fluorescent lighting them up above. That's the only lighting that they've got on them. So this was lit with fluorescent, whereas the other room was more incandescent lighting. And again, it's handled it very, very well. And this is why this wedding was so good, guys, because all these people talking about banding, saying it's no good in these conditions, it's now rubbish, because I can say it's rubbish. I've been working under, was an incredibly challenging environment to use the A7 in, to really test it. So they can't say that it is an issue anymore, because I'm showing you the results as they've come out of camera, and I'm really, really happy with how they've performed without banding or anything in them. So it's amazing, and it's beautiful how it's worked. Again, you can sort of see this is all lit from that light that's above them. And the focus, this was particularly always hard to do, because I'm standing inside this room as they're entering into the wedding reception venue, and I'm on continuous focus. And with the 55mm, and as they're walking, it's nailing the focus on them as they're walking, which before is, it would have so much trouble grabbing focus. I used to have to stand them there for quite a period of time coming in. I'd put my hand up and say stop while I grabbed focus on the bride and groom, but I didn't have to in this scenario because it was very, very quick. So I just put my hand up, went bang, grabbed the shot, and they moved on. Whereas before I would have had to stop them for a lot longer, trying for it to search a little bit to get focus. But it just nailed it. And even turning around into the wedding venue, you can see how dark this venue is. It's really, really dark and moody, which is beautiful. But it's focused straight on her. I just swung around, grabbed a shot, and it grabbed focus instantly, and I could get the shot. This is a thing for me, and I was sort of a little bit hesitant before, wondering how this would really work as a wedding camera, but honestly now, this probably will be my go-to camera for nearly all of these areas where I think focus is going to be a challenge. Because it's just a game changer in how the focus actually works. Again, cutting the cake. It's again was heavily were very, very dark, and I just had one ice light actually that I brought in that was up in this area over here, just to give a bit of fill, because I didn't want to use flash. I did use flash on another camera though, so I quickly changed to that, but I only wanted to show you how this would perform as it was straight out of camera. And then I immediately sort of stepped in and grabbed the cake up close to see how it focused sort of up on. I went straight for the wedding ring and grabbed a shot there of them getting that shot too. Going through here too with the wedding, I've only lit this with 2 ice lights on either side. And I just wanted to see how it focused in that scenario. So there's no flash used here either. And I'm really, really happy with how it performed. Like I said, these will be edited, guys, so don't count these as finished results. These are the unedited images. And again, for the wedding dance, I've just got 2 ice lights lit up here. I've got one to the right and one to the left. That gives a little bit of fill. And again, it's nailed the focus on them all the time. And I can't speak highly enough of how this focused in very, very challenging conditions. It's just beautiful. Studio said colors are really good. Is this Adobe standard? No, I used sRGB as my color profile always, so I'm using that. I don't use Adobe because the only time you can see that is if your monitor, as soon as you start to go to print, you can have issues. So I'm just printing with sRGB as the color profile that I'm using. Again, very, very challenging conditions. This was just shooting off some really, really quick random shots of the wedding group just dancing, and again, this would have been quite hard to do before. These are ISO 4000 that I'm shooting these at. The dance ones are ISO 4000 as well, that I'm grabbing through here. So it's working, really quite high in the ISO here. I'm up 100th of a second as well, 3.2. So you can see it's working quite high at high ISOs, and I'm really, really happy with how it's performed actually. So the ISO is terrific, and the focus can get you these real moments that I would have had issues before, where the A7R2 particularly is a little bit hesitant in how it focuses and takes to shoot. So it's worked really, really well for getting those shots. So I thought that I'd show you that and sort of talk to you about how it went. At least you've now seen a full real wedding done with how it performs. I mean, obviously later on, as I start to try it with flash, the images are going to start to look a bit more dynamic with when I'm using the Profoto. But like I said, the other images that were more the formal type shots I've used, the A7R2 with the Profoto due to the fact that I knew that worked. So the images that they get with the flash, off-camera flash, will be done with the Profoto. But I can't stress how happy I am with how the camera actually performed. So, a couple of things too with the camera too. It was great to have that little control at the back to just use your focusing between AFS to manual focus and AFC just by using it like that. You've got your quick high speed here, or if you're doing single exposures. S&Q if you're doing video. I did take a fraction of video as well. I won't show that yet because I haven't looked at that, but I have taken a fraction of handheld video that I can look at as well. But again, the controls seem to be really, really good. I love the autofocus. It is just incredible. Now, to explain a little bit how they went the cameras on the day, I used RAW in the fast slot. So I had RAW in the fast slot and I shot JPEG to the second shot. I did use some high frame rate shots just as tests, and the buffer was incredible, but I didn't try and shoot till the buffer was full and never had any issues with slowing down or filling the buffer. The way you can just look at your the back of the camera and check the photo immediately after you've taken the picture is like a game changer. With the A7R II, I'm always waiting if I want to chimp and have a look. It's always that writing to disk, which can be frustrating. I no longer had that, even after sort of taking a whole series of images. So the buffer for me as a wedding photographer is never going to be an issue. Obviously, I had no overheating at all, but it's winter here, but I didn't have any overheating using it for the whole day. It was incredible. The battery I grabbed 600, nearly 700 shots for the day on the single battery. I didn't change the battery. It was incredible. I had 60% left on that battery by the end of the day. Now, I work fairly slow. I'm not a sort of run and gun type photographer. So when I'm not shooting, I turn the camera off. But I was getting, like I said, I got nearly 700 photos out of this on the single battery. And I had 60% left, so I don't know how much I could get if I kept going. I only had one battery for the day, and I was worried about that. I took the charger just in case if I had to charge it, but I didn't need to. So the battery life is outstanding. The screen at the back is much better in the fact that it's much brighter, and the viewfinder obviously is better as well. One of the things that I really adored, I didn't use a joystick much. I sort of didn't feel comfortable using it because I haven't used it for so long, so I didn't use it, but using the touch focus, especially for the detail shots, was amazing. I'd be using the touch screen to pull focus to the area that I wanted to get to, and that was really, really good, and it's very fast. It's much better than the A6500 in its responsiveness, I think. So the touch screen for me seemed to work much better. One of the interesting things was, though, that when you hold the camera up to your eye and use the touch screen, on the A6500, you can use the touchscreen as you're using the EVF inside. I couldn't get that to work with this, the A9. Now, I don't know whether I just haven't got something selected. So if anyone can let me know about that, chime in, because I'm curious to know if you can use the touchscreen through the EVF. I couldn't get that to work, so it's a bit of an issue. I don't know why I couldn't. The touchscreen on the back was very, very dynamic. As I was moving it around to gain focus, it moved very, very fast. And it was great, but I'd love to be able to use that through the EVF. So just let me know if you can do that, guys, because I couldn't find where I could get that to work. I've got this C3 button up here it's automatically on changing between mechanical and the electronic shutter or auto, and that was great if you did want to switch between them. And I haven't set up really any of these buttons apart from I'm using the C1 for the eye autofocus. Like I said, I only got this on Friday, so I didn't even have time really to go through much. I've just sort of set it up similar to what I had with my A7R III. I'll have to spend some time now setting it up to make it work for me with all of the features and the your buttons set up so it works how I want it, but I haven't had time yet to do that. So I'll be looking at that over the coming weeks in some shoots that I've been doing. The backup, like I said, worked really, really well. I haven't even looked at the JPEG files yet. I only downloaded the RAW yesterday just so that I could show you guys as a quick discussion between the two. So The only thing is, as a wedding photographer, I do think this is a game changer in autofocus. I think for the first time I can say that this focus is as good as my D4S. Before I did say, and if you look at my older videos, I would always say that the focus was not as good as what my SLR was in the D4S. I can now say, after using both cameras, and like I said, I used Nikon for years, that this A9 is equally as good as what I was getting with my D4S. In a lot of respects, it's better in the fact that I did used to have sometimes issues with backlit scenarios with the D4S, whereas this nailed it for me in the focus. The 55mm 1.8 lens was incredible for low light. I can't state how fast that worked in low light. And the noise seems to be really, really well controlled. Dynamic range is actually really, really good, better than what I thought it would be. It's still not as good as what my A7R2 is, though. So I still think, as a professional wedding photographer, I still think you need the A7R2 for really high contrast dynamic range shots. And that's where I'll be still using my A7R2. And also, you just can't crop in anywhere near the amount you can with what the A7R2 is. So I think there's grounds for both. And I think if you had an A7R2, I wouldn't be selling the A7R2 to get the A9. I think you really need both, really, to get some really, really dynamic wedding images. I think you could use both. They both have a place in a wedding shoot. I mean, it's probably the perfect pairing is with the A7R2 and the A9, because anything that has your focus scenario, if you needed to go quiet, you can use that. I did find it really disconcerting, the A9 without the shutter. Even when I put it on, it was on quite a low sound. You can probably turn that up, I'm not sure, but the default sound, often I couldn't even hear that I was shooting, and I felt a bit uncomfortable at first, and I will have to get used to that. It's very, very strange putting your finger on the trigger and not getting that feel of the shot being done, that slap that you sort of feel, or the noise that you actually hear. But again, once I get used to that's an amazing thing, that you can shoot in an environment and not cause any noise at all. So I do think you're going to have both cameras, and I don't think any camera is perfect at this stage. But my God, what a pairing! It's amazing. I still did use the A6500 on the day though, and I used that quite extensively because I also love that camera too. I do tend to use multiple cameras all through the day because I've got different lenses on, and rather than change a lens, I'll often just grab a different camera. But you know, I'm very happy with how it performed. So looking at the shoot overall, I'm incredibly happy. If dynamic range is a real issue in a really contrasty environment, you may want to go to the A9, or you could expose for the image as best you can, and I think it's still going to be really acceptable. But I'm just used to the range that the A7R2 will give me, so I still will be keeping my A7R2 and not selling that, and keeping the A9, obviously, which is just an incredible camera. Focus is unbelievable. Compared to what I've been used to with the A9 and the A7 series, the A9 is outstanding, so I can't state that enough, how well it's actually worked for me. And this is just from a wedding where I'm not really comfortable with using the cameras yet. I can just picture what I'm going to be like in another couple of months after I've got this camera nailed down, how I'll be comfortable with it. And also, hopefully, Profoto will release an update to the Air remote soon, and then I can use the Profoto gear with it as well. The electronic shutter is just amazing, and I had no banding that I can talk about that I'm worried about it. The noise is well controlled, so I'm very happy with that. So overall, guys, I just have to say I've given you an image, a wedding now that you can look at, so people can't say this is not going to work in this scenario. It did not overheat for me. I had nearly 700 images on the one battery, and I had 60% left on the battery. There's not much more I can say. So let's open it up to questions, and we can just see what some of you would like to say. Studio 96 said, colours are really good. Oh, I've answered that before. Yeah, I'm using the sRGB profile. Three Trees Photography said, I have a 7-year-old 20 megapixel full frame Canon 6D that never misses focus in any lighting. They are now less than 1,000. Thought the newbies should know. I apologise if this was a Sony advertisement. No, and that's fine, Three Trees. And look, honestly, like I said, I used to be happy with my D4S too, that the amount of focus, though, the acquisition on this, the eye autofocus and the way it locks on is like I've never seen before. So I can't say that enough. It is a game changer, the focus on this camera. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm not being paid by anyone to say this. And that's why I said the negative side of it is it still doesn't beat an A7R2 in image quality, but it's still outstanding. How many, Three Trees said, how many buttons can be customized? I think you can customize everywhere. From what I've looked at in the manual, look quickly, you can even customize the wheel. You can customize everything. I mean, it's incredible how much this camera can be customized. I just haven't looked at it enough yet because, like I said, I haven't had the time to actually do that yet. So I can't say much. Three Trees said, I'm counting on the new A7R2 replacement to have a lot of the focus capabilities. In the future, it looks bright. It does. And, you know, if the A7 III gets this or whatever, that's going to be an incredible camera as well. Kanik said, I hope you get those features in the new A7R III, and I hope they do too. I'm sure they will. It just might not get the fast shutter and things like that, but it's going to be interesting to see what's actually comes on. So are there any other questions, guys, about the wedding that you'd sort of like me to sort of talk about before we finish for the day? But like I said, I'm really, really happy with how it performed, and I'm so glad I got it for this wedding so I could show you guys a real review of how it actually functioned, you know, in a real scenario, and especially under incredibly challenging conditions. That's where this was so good, because this venue was so hard to shoot in, and I have shot in this venue a number of times before, and obviously used the Sonys before there, and I know where the camera has issues with focusing, and this nailed it compared to what it did previously. People are just talking about the stack sensor, that they're thinking that the A7R III won't have the stack sensor, and that could be true. So can you please give me a thumbs up, guys? Let's get this video out there, because let other people sort of are bagging the Sony A9 see this video to see how it actually has worked in real life. It hasn't just been reviewed just basically, you know, anywhere or done a quick review. It's actually a real paying job. So, you know, if you can, please like it. Also, put some questions down below if you are watching this video a little bit later on, because I'll answer those as well and let you know how it all went. And clearly you'll start to see, if you follow me on Instagram or my Facebook page, you'll see that the images, as these start to be edited and stuff, will be posted on. I never post anything that hasn't been edited, so you'll start to see how they've been edited and how they look later on. Color is outstanding. I'm so happy with it. The white balance was really, really good and controlled under those very, very harsh conditions, so I'm really, really happy with how that performed. Like I said, I didn't see any banding at all under very, very challenging conditions, and the ISO up to 4000, which was the maximum I went on that evening there, was really, really well controlled, and I'm really, really comfortable going up above that, and I'll have to try it a bit further to see how it performs a bit later on. Mark said, hi David, how is the autofocus comparison between the A7R2 and the A6500? The A9 is in a league of its own, Mark. I mean, it's so far above the other cameras. The A6500 is much faster than the A7R2, but the A9 is in a league of its own. I've never seen anything like it. So it's incredible. For focus, I haven't used anything like it. And like I said, I used to own the D4S, and this is much better than what I had in the D4S. So I haven't used a D5, so I can't compare it to what a D5 would be, or the new Canons. So I can't sort of say how that will be, but yeah, all I can compare it to is how I used it on the day, and it was stellar. So yeah, just to let you know how that functioned. Please, like I said, if you can give me a thumbs up, that'd be great. Any other questions you want to go before we finish? Otherwise, you'll have to leave questions down below, so that we've got a lot watching. So if you can, throw some questions in, because I'm here at the moment that I can talk about them. Do you have anything else that you'd like to know? Like I said, the day was quite overcast initially, but then the sun did come out, so it did give me a chance to compare it sort of in that low light, lack of contrast situation, and also, like I showed you with that lake one, where it was quite contrasty, it worked very well there as well. Mark said, excellent, thanks, keep up the good work. Like I said, I will over the coming days put up some images with the camera used in a model shoot, so I'll show you that as well. But like I said, I'm more comfortable. My work is very, very reliant on using high-end flash too, so I have to probably hope that Profoto will bring out that update fairly soon. I'm certain it'll probably work in the Profoto gear in manual without HSS or TTL, but I'm used to that now with the new Profoto Air remote, that it works in TTL and HSS, so I'm hoping that they bring that out fairly soon. So any last questions, guys, before I sign off? How's the weather? It's cold down here. It's actually 17 degrees. I shouldn't whinge. It's winter here and it's 17 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm such a sook. It's not cold. I mean, look, it's winter here in Australia and that's cold for us, 17, but I mean, it's not cold compared to Europe, is it, or most of America? But yeah, it's 17 degrees today, nice and sunny. It's beautiful outside. All right, guys, well, I think I'm going to sign off, and like I said, please give me a thumbs up if you can, and obviously subscribe to my page. You'll see me grow with this camera. I'll have another live talk probably on Thursday. Gasper, I think it's Gasper, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, says, how does the A9 compare in ISO performance to the A7 II? It kills it. Yeah, I don't like going over 1600 in the A7 IIs. Like I said, these shots that we're looking at here were 4000 ISO, and I'm really, really happy with how it's performing. So there's no comparison between the A9 and the A7 IIs in how it actually worked. It's that one, it was shot at 4000 ISO. So, there's no comparison. You can't compare this camera to the A7 II camera at all. Three Trees said it before, but these talks beat the hell out of ham radio. Thanks, mate. That's a nice thing to say. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to sign off, and clearly, like I said, if you have any other questions now, just leave them down below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Enjoy the rest of the evening. I suppose a lot of you are going to bed. I'm just about to go and have lunch. And I'll see you again for another talk. I'll probably give another live talk on Thursday around about the same time I started this. So we'll see then. We'll have another talk about news and latest rumours and things like that that we can talk about then. So bye for now, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks so much for supporting me. It's been great to talk to you all again. So bye for now.